Yep, I guess this is trying to figure out the other day, 82, this is my 37th year in college basketball. And, opening practice years and years ago was a lot different than it is really today. It used to be October 15th. You couldn't touch your guys in the summer, couldn't watch them play, couldn't do anything with them in the fall. So it was different. You had about 6 weeks to get them ready. But now, we've had our team since June. You only get 4 hours a week, and then we had them for 10 practices going to Canada. So you're able to work with your guys and touch your guys, which makes it better because you can go for shorter periods of time when the opening day starts. But opening day is kind of opening day. It's going to be good to be able to be with our guys, on a more consistent basis. I'm looking forward to coaching our team. We've got a lot of work, and in one phase we are way ahead where we should be just because of the time with Canada. That really helped us a lot. Offensive packages, defensive schemes, so we've got a lot of things in, which now allows you to kind of get to 4-on-4 and 5-on-5 quicker, and that's when you can make progress with your team. And we're a little beat up right now. It hadn't been a good week for our freshman class. Franco Miller had surgery Saturday. He hadn't been healthy since he's been here. He came in with kind of an existing knee pain, and so it's kind of been a fracture of a kneecap, and he had surgery, and it'll probably be, anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks. Luis Rodriguez, who we really counted on a bunch, maybe our best defender, bumped knees with Bruce on Wednesday, and we thought it was a contusion, but it's a meniscus, so he's got to have surgery in the morning, and he'll be probably 3 to 5 weeks. So those two guys kind of hurt our depth, but, obviously it's part of it. So as you go through practice, the biggest thing, obviously, is making progress and staying healthy. It really is. And when I was at the school at Middle Tennessee, it just, knock on wood, just our very best players for the last 8 years, just a part of the talent process or part of the process, they were durable. They just kind of did the course. So hope that'll be it for us. Both those guys make great recoveries, but we're looking forward to starting today on a day-to-day basis.
What kind of growth have you seen since Canada? Have you been able to mark much since that trip?
Yeah, I really think our ball movement is a lot better than it was. Probably on Saturday we went. Because we've been out recruiting, was maybe our best day as far as ball movement. No matter if you're talking to an NBA coach or college coach or high school coach, everybody's talking about ball sticking in the hands of guys and ball getting side to side and playing unselfishness. I think that's something that we've gotten better at. Defensively, we're making strides, but that's where our biggest emphasis is. We've got to become a team that can grind possessions. And we don't go to next plays very well here. Something we've got to really work on. Turnover leads to a basket on the other end. Bad body language. Those are some things that we're really emphasizing. So a lot of it's we got to be able to grind defensive possessions in the half court and get back defensively.
You guys had very little roster attrition, virtually none from when you took over. And you mentioned the Canada trip and kind of being able to see what you have. In terms of where you've gone and taking other jobs, where does this rank among what you have there when you start?
Yeah, when I took the Middle Tennessee job 16 years ago, it's pretty much the same. We had some good players, not a lot, but the guys coming back have been good players in the league, just like these 5 guys back. I want to include, I guess, D.C. Davis is 6. He didn't get many minutes at all last year, but we have put him on scholarship, so he's part of it. But really 5 guys. All those guys have all had great moments, in league play, and while they've been at Ole Miss. I think sometimes then you look at the league that we're playing in, so that's a big part of the equation also, that you come into the SEC, which is a great thing. It's the best the league it's ever been, top to bottom in the history of the league, which that's great for all of us. But obviously where you find yourself with only really 5 guys who've played in the SEC, that's not a big number out of 13.
As far as Devontae Shuler's concerned, he can drive the basket, he can defend, but is there an area like maybe his jump shot or whatever it is that you've been focusing in on to try to get him to improve to take him to the next level?
Yeah, he's built for us. He's very competitive. He's got a great motor. He doesn't flinch at being coached. I think he can be a really elite defender in our league. Now trying to really get him to really run a team. Just not dribble it, but really run a team. He's made strides with that. I think he can be a good shooter. He's got a lot of movement in his shot. Sometimes I think it's something when he stays more still, when he shoots balls, he's gotten better. But he's been really a pleasure for our whole staff to coach Ben.
Any other questions?
In what area do you and your staff want to really put your stamp on this team? That makes sense.
Yeah, if you've watched our teams in the past, I guess I'll rephrase it. What I hope our team looks like is a team that has great toughness, a team that when people come watch, Ole Miss people come watch, they see a team that's very willing passers. The ball doesn't stick. There's motion offense with great spacing, and there's not as much dribbling. If you're going to drive it with a purpose, but the ball movement. And then secondly, I think when you see our team practice tempo, physicalness, toughness, team that can rebound. We need to be a good rebounding guard team where the guards go back and really rebound. And so we hope that's kind of the stamp when people come and watch our teams play over the years, that's exactly what they see year in and year out.
You mentioned your two freshmen who are out right now. What is your guard depth kind of behind your returners right now?
Yeah, it puts D.C. Davis, but he played in the last game in Canada, Parrish, and he played good. He really played well, and I think he's very athletic. He's as athletic as anybody on our team, great wingspan, as strong as anybody on our team. So, he's a guy that's going to have to play minutes the entire year for us. And, we're moving K.J. Buffin some to the 3, small forward. Blake Henson also can move to the small forward and play a 3, with kind of Franco and Luis out. We haven't played Bruce and Dom together a lot, and this may get us to play Bruce. We kind of gave Bruce a goal weight that if this is the weight you hit, then that's when we have a chance you really can play more power forward and play with Dom instead of you guys not being on the same floor because offensively, no doubt, but Bruce got to be able to guard those live 4 men, that are out on the floor, moving around, picking and popping, shooting threes. And so that's our biggest thing. And if he can do that, then obviously offensively he can play a 4 all day.
Sounds like those guys may be back 3 to 5 weeks, maybe coming back about the time the season starts.
Yeah, it's so hard for those freshmen. It's if you got a guy like TD, knock on wood, nothing that, but he's been here, or maybe a guy, really nobody in our system, but if you had a guy who's maybe been in our system for a couple years, then it's just about him really getting physically able. These guys are missing so many mental reps that it's just they may be physically okay, but it was going to be a process eating there every single day, watching tape and doing all the other things. So it's going to put them back. It'll put them back, and probably realistically, from everything, maybe 1st of December to where they can really, really be effective in really live college games.
KJ and Blake were already playing a lot when y'all went to Canada. Where are they now compared to where they were then? And they're just kind of thrown out there to see what they can do.
Yeah, they made a lot of progress, and they really have. I mean, Blake and KJ had his best practice on Saturday. He's just so skilled for his size. He's gained about 13 or 14 pounds. I mean, both those guys they're going to be terrific players at Ole Miss. They both think they're easy to coach. They're both skills. They both make threes. And so they are just kind of like the forwards we played together at Middle Tennessee. I mean, both 6'7", 6'8". KJ will be 230 pounds before it's over. Blake's 230 pounds. And their skill level on the floor stays spread. So they're going to play a lot together this year, some 4 and some 3.
You mentioned Terrence Davis, and he's proven to be a consistent scorer in some games that he's played in his years. Is consistency something you've talked to him about, and how do you make him more of a consistent, reliable scorer?
He's got to become a guy who just doesn't rely on athletic ability to play. I mean, he's got to be an elite defender and not a guy who just steals a ball because he's faster than the other guy. But can he play within a defensive scheme and a defensive concept and really, there's no doubt he can, and follow scouting reports and play with detail defensively. Now you get a guy who's that athletic and he does have a good motor. Now if he really can start playing with more detail, and he's really improved in that area. And he had some good moments, obviously the last 3 years. But I think that's the biggest thing, is can he really be an elite defender? And if he does, it really sets the tone for the rest of our team. Because I've told TD, I mean, it's obvious. My biggest calling point is going to be, can you coach your very best players the hardest? If you can't, you got no team. It's a nightmare. If you're trying to fight your best players every day with attitude and effort, I can do it. We're all built to do it. It's no fun to do it that way. Or do you just obviously you have guys that your best players are the guys that are going to be the easiest to coach. And with all the new players on our team, it really helps. And he's been really good so far. So, we'll see with he and Brian and Devontae and those guys during the grind of the October practice.
What's your relationship with Brian been like since you've been here, and what's he done over the summer to improve his game?
It's been great. Brian has spent a lot of time in our office. He's a real articulate, good guy. He's a real talent, as you guys know. Again, same thing with TD. He's an offensive talent. Ball's got to get out of his hands. Can he play well without the ball, in his hands all the time? Can he become an elite defender? He needs to become a better rebounder because he's very athletic. And so all of those other things, but as far as the coach Brian, he's been terrific. He's been great. You coach him, he just sits and listens. He's very receptive to coaching. All those guys have been really good in that manner.
I was just going to ask, so many young coaches try to land that first Power 5 job by the time they're 30, mid-30s. You did it differently. You waited for your right opportunity, stayed patient. How's that going to help you here in your first Power 5 job?
Yeah, experience is everything. I guess every time I start a new year, I think about my first job at Southwest Junior College in 1984. And a guy named Horace Holmes gave me a chance, and I went down there, and I made so many mistakes coaching, but nobody knew. Nobody knew except for the 300 or 400 or 500 that came to the games, and that was an upgrade, from where we got the job. But now, obviously, experience is an unbelievable thing. You start looking at coaches around college basketball who've taken teams to Final Fours and winning championships. There's some really good young coaches. There's a lot of guys that has a lot of experience under the belt, and it sure has helped us from a recruiting standpoint. Sometimes going next with a guy that maybe has a certain star by its name, but who really fits how we play, and then I think the experience of day to day with teams, I know it helps. It just has to. It doesn't matter if it's my job or anybody's job, anywhere. Experience does matter.